Good evening. We'll call this meeting of the Fargo School Board to order. Welcome to all of our guests. I would entertain a motion to approve the order of agenda. Jim.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the order of the agenda, but I'd like to actually change it first. I'd like to move the placeholder for executive session up before board reports.
Motion is second, and that includes the HR addendum before us?
Yep.
All in favor of the order of agenda as moved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same? Thank you. Strategic plan and action, celebrating success. Dr. Gross, would you do the honors for us?
Yes, thank you very much. Today you can see we have a wonderful representation from our ECSE program here to share with you about some of the successes that are happening in that program. And just to help with the introduction, I'd like to introduce Patty Cummings, who is our Director of Special Education, and then she will introduce the rest of the team.
Thanks, Bob. So again, it's wonderful to stand in front of you as a group and share celebrations from our special education program. Today you will be hearing from our early childhood special education program, ECSE. One of the things that I would like you to know, if you don't, ECSE serves kids who are age 3 to 5. There's two different ways typically in which students come to our program. One is through our Child Find, which we advertise in the paper, and we send out information to hospitals, registered daycares, in order to help locate children who might be in need of our services. And the other is when students or children are born with significant special needs. They often start with services at Southeast Human Services. They serve birth to 3. So we do a transitional meeting to start serving those students. So we have an interesting group for you, a really exciting set of teachers here to talk to you, and a very gracious family that agreed to come in and share a little bit of their story. So without further ado, I will let the teachers come up and explain to you their day.
Good evening. My name is Jill Van Winkle. I am one of the speech-language pathologists in the ECSE program. We also have Shannon Larson, sorry. Former name was Anderson when I first met her. Shannon Larson is one of our ECSE teachers, and Janine Pearl is one of our occupational therapists. And behind us, we have a good representation of therapists and teachers from our program as well. We are very grateful to be here tonight. We think it's a great opportunity to get to share what we do and just give you more information about our program.
Thank you, and I'll get us started unless we're going to go ahead. Okay, we'll go ahead. Early Childhood Special Education, ECSE. What is ECSE? ECSE stands for Early Childhood Special Education Services, and like Patty said, it's available to children ages 3 to 5 with a diagnosed disability, medical condition, or delay in the following areas which impact their education: cognitive, speech-language, motor, self-help, and social-emotional development. The ECSE program is offered at no cost to those children who meet the federal and state guidelines for the program. There's one of the classroom teachers of ours, Lori Vesledal, leading at group time. What does ECSE do? Well, ECSE provides instruction for each child focusing on the documented delays that I talked about to gain skills to be successful in his or her environments. It places focus on concrete, manipulative, and sensory methods to teaching the appropriate skills. An individual education plan, or IEP, is written to meet each of the child's unique individual needs. And here we've got another classroom teacher doing small group. We've got Jen Karpinen. When does ECSE occur? We have a morning session that runs Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Afternoon session, Monday through Friday. That Wednesday morning is set aside for selective preschool screening that we do once a month. We've got evaluation of students, and then we also hold our IEP meetings. The number of sessions a child attends is determined individually for each child by their IEP team. We got Suzanne Hammer there as one of our physical therapists on the right, doing some gross motor. Where is ECSE located? The program is currently located on the first floor at Agassiz. Services may also be provided in center-based programs and in typical preschool centers throughout Fargo, example Head Start, as appropriate for each child. And I myself, as the itinerant ECSE teacher, I do travel, and I think I've been in just about every preschool in the Fargo area, as well as I've served a student at Sanford Hospital. I go into the home, at the Y shelter. So there's a number of locations that we get very crafty where we provide that service. Okay, and now I believe Jill is coming over.
So to talk about how we achieve some growth and what we do in our preschool program, even in preschool, we align it to the strategic plan just in a very more relaxed and, we think, fun way. You can see that we've got all of the things that you would think would happen in a typical preschool. We do circle time, calendar time. We've got large groups that focus on language and stories. Of course, there is play, which would be the best way for our students ages 3 to 5 to learn. We incorporate gross motor activities. They have a daily snack. We also work on self-help skill training, such as hygiene. We work on toilet training, the preschoolers. They also have library once a week. They have music therapy weekly. We do small group centers, social skill training, incorporating fine motor sensory activities, and we work on routines and procedures, and students have individual therapy sessions as they have been deemed necessary. These things all occur every day. This is Nancy Johnson-Seidel. She is one of our speech language pathologists. In talking about resources and planning, you can see the huge list of staff that we have, and it consists of one program coordinator, who is Carrie Reggie, who is also here in the audience. We have 6 full-time ECSE classroom teachers, and then we also have the itinerant teacher, Shannon, who is full-time. Each classroom has at least 2 paraprofessionals, and then we have more as needed based on student need. Right now, we currently have 13 part-time paras. We have 3.5 positions for speech language pathologists, 2 physical therapists, 2 occupational therapists. We also have 2 part-time vision therapists, 1 part-time deaf and hard of hearing teacher, our part-time librarian, 1 part-time music therapist, part-time nursing staff, and we also have a full-time administrative assistant. All hands on deck. This is just a picture of getting out to the bus, and everything that we do daily is preparing them for the next step. So even walking out to the bus is getting them ready for when they're in kindergarten to know how to do that. With continuous improvement and accountability, our instruction is driven by the IEP and the standards that we write our goals to on the IEP and our student data. And so how we do that is when a student enters the program, we have to do something called an ECHO. It's early childhood outcomes. It is a state form. And then when a student leaves our program to go on to kindergarten, we also do the exit of that. So it's a rating scale, and it's a way to show progress in our program. We do progress reporting on the individual goals on the IEP, and that is done 3 times a year on paper, in addition to conferences the same time that the elementary schools do their conferences twice a year. We do formative assessments, so it would be the baseline information of when students come, and we also check that same data at conference time and progress reporting time, November, February, and May. And then we also implement a triad data review. And so we periodically meet as teams and talk about students that we all service and talk about ways that we can improve things that we might have questions on with that student, and it gives us a good chance to collaborate. This would be in our gross motor time, which is in the gym. So for community outreach and communication, Patty did touch on our screening. We have once a month. It's our developmental screening, and this would be free of charge for anyone in Fargo who has concerns about their child's development in the areas of child development, their cognition, behavior, speech, language, hearing, fine motor, gross motor, and vision. So we check that once a month, and if we see red flags and we have criteria from screening to see how they would move on and then do a full evaluation, or we could determine, based on what we found, if they should come back and be rescreened later, just so we don't let them fall through the cracks, or if they pass. And they can always bring them back. We do this the first Wednesday of each month between the hours of 8:30 and 11. So currently, our enrollment and the assessments and screenings, we just have some numbers for you. Right now, we have 121 students in our program on site enrolled. We have 30 off-site students, and that would be under Shannon's umbrella at center-based programs or Head Start. From infant development, which we are going to talk about in a little bit, but that is what Patty told you about our students who are identified with a disability and they're receiving services through infant development. We, right now this year, have received 72 referrals from that program. We have done 136 initial evaluations since July, and we've done over 100 screenings. And here we can see students in Jen's class getting music therapy.
If you look up, you will see a variety of different diagnoses, and really at ECSE, we get to serve very awesome special kids with special needs. All of the children in our program do not necessarily have to have a specific medical diagnosis, but they are meeting an evaluation criteria under the state of North Dakota, the IDEA guidelines, to fit into one of the 13 categories. If you notice, we deal with anything from behaviors to cerebral palsy, autism, and I think what the most rewarding part of my job is we never turn parents away or a child away because they're too difficult to handle or medically fragile. I take great pride in that, and our teachers, they all have little halos over their head because they love these kids as their own, and it's so rewarding to assure parents that we are going to be here for them as they start their educational process. So it's pretty neat. This is Anna. She is one of our vision teachers working with a student with a cortical visual impairment. So there he's focusing in on that yellow pom-pom, learning to use his vision. We do receive referrals from a variety of sources within the community. It may be from parents through the screening process, physicians, daycare providers, community preschools, Head Start, private therapy clinics, and again, that Birth to 3 program.
So just to touch on that Birth to 3 program that we've mentioned a couple of times, it is a big part of our job. When students are also already receiving services through either Ann Carlson Infant Development or Early Intervention Partners, those are the 2 programs through the state that we have here in Fargo, a referral is made by their team to our program when the student is 2 years, 5 months old. So then what we do is we meet with the parents. A team is assigned in our program of who the teacher will be, the case manager, and the therapist that the child needs. And then we determine if we are going to do an evaluation, if we need to do an evaluation, which most often we do, so we can see if the criteria for the schools is met. Doesn't always mean that because they're receiving services that they could meet the criteria for the schools. We use the North Dakota DPI guidelines for the evaluation criteria. We then go ahead and do the evaluation within 60 days. And then we meet again and we discuss the results. If they're eligible, we write an IEP. And then the student can start receiving services once that child turns 3. Positive school culture is also a big part of our program. And you can see here we've had some community vehicles that came, and the kids get outside and they really enjoy that. And within our building itself, there's some collaboration with Woodrow Wilson students on the bottom left. They do trick-or-treating each year for the kids, and they also do things like a field day. Sometimes we get outside, and sometimes they do it in the gym. We thought this would be a nice slide to share with you. Quote from Bill Gates: "The first 5 years have so much to do with how the next 80 turn out." We just want to thank you again, invite you at any point in time to please come visit us. We'd love to have you and show you around in person. And we'd like to thank Rebecca Knudsen, who is our board liaison and has made her way over there already. So thank you.
I would like to also introduce David and Noelle Vernoy and their children Theo, who attends our program, and his little sister, is it Lily? Yes. Lily. They just have a few words to say too. Thank you.
Well, thank you and good evening, everyone. I guess just to share a little bit of our story. We're the family of redheads, so things are very feisty all the time. So, we moved here 2.5 years ago to become part of this community, and we threw ourselves into this community and became part of this community, and we love this community. And we made this our new home. I remember the day that we were new to the area, and I remember the day I came down and I told my wife that I said, I think there's something wrong. Because many nights I sat on his bed and we would go through the picture book and he just couldn't say anything back to me. And he just didn't have the ways or the means to be able to communicate. And I remember when I came down and I told Noelle, I said, I think there's something wrong and I want to talk to my boy. And from there we ended up with a doctor, and the doctor started us on our path, and this is where we ended up. And I'm so grateful and thankful that we actually ended up here. Theo loves his teachers, and we love his teachers. Today I get to communicate with him.
Not like that.
So, as a father, and I grew up LD with learning disabilities. I grew up in a very, very, very hard home, and my first 5 years were not good. And my goal in life is to have my ceiling be his floor. And I want to see him succeed, and I know the difficulties of being learning disabled growing up and the hardships that actually carries with it. And I hope as we caught this early enough and what he is dealing with and the help that he's getting today, that he's breaking the boundaries that would be placed on him. He's always struggled. He was a preemie. He struggled with breathing and oxygen intake for a big portion of his younger years or younger months. And we didn't know at the time, and we kind of linked everything back once we figured out that he was having some issues, that we were now understanding why he wasn't eating or why he had a hard time, using his mouth, and sensory issues, and
Yes.
So, once again, I just want to say thank you, and I want to thank the teachers, this program that they have before you, because it's changing and impacting his life, and in doing that, it's changing the family dynamics, and it's helping us learn how to communicate with him better. So, and learning some skills along the way to do that. So, I just want to say thank you, guys. So, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. Theo, you have quite a daddy. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
It's incredible. And thank you to all of you for all that you do. Just so amazing and inspiring. Anybody have any comments or questions? Rebecca.
I just wanted to say that it's very timely that you are presenting here today, because I visited your center, the building on May 1st. And most of, what you said here today, some of that's in my report that I turned in, and I think I was able to get some information correct based on the presentation that was given today. I was kind of checking, like, yeah, I think I have that. I think I understand. But thanks for helping to educate us on what you do, and appreciate the family that showed up, and it was just a delight to be in there. I'd like to spend more time in those classrooms. Those kids are super adorable, and I only had a chance to spend, of course, a short time. So thank you for the service that you give, and for helping our kids and the families that have them be even more productive for our community.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anyone else? Well, take your halos home with you and get some well-deserved rest, and thanks again for making the time to come share with us. It's fantastic. Thank you. We have no one signed up to speak, so we will move to staff reports. There is not a report tonight from FEA, so we will go to Equitable Resources and Planning Monitoring the Mentor Program. And Dr. Agri, if you will do the honors there.
Yes, thank you. Tonight we have Joelle Johnson with us, and she comes back on pretty much a yearly basis to give us an update and report on our new teacher mentor program. And Joelle works with induction, which is beyond mentoring, and it goes into the first 3 years of teachers' experience in Fargo. So she's going to share some of the progress that has happened this year, as well as a video that I think Kirby has assisted with. So welcome, Joelle.
Thank you. We're in competition here. And now that I'm like trying to wipe my tears. All right, here we go. We'll try to get through this in my blurry contacts. Okay. All right, so I am Joelle Johnson, just like Rachel said, and I am the facilitator for the new teacher induction program. And I have been working with this program for past 6 years, roughly. At your seats, you'll find a pamphlet. Some might call it a book of information. And if you didn't have time to look at it, I'll point out some highlights in this pamphlet or book, you might call it, of the highlights. And if you want to read deeper into anything that I might just highlight, you can go ahead and do that. And also, if at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, there is a page number. So if you, again, it's lengthy, so you can just refer to that page number. And if it doesn't have a page number, it's not in the book. It's a surprise. So just like Rachel said, induction. Induction's like the umbrella, and the true form of that definition is it's a spectrum of services provided to teachers who enter a school district. And so in Fargo, we provide a summer orientation for our teachers that really address those district policies and procedures. We also have new hire meetings, which address anything in the strategic plan or district initiatives, such as PLCs, MTSS. And we also have meetings specifically for our first-year teachers as well, since they have different needs. We provide buddies, which is a person at the building that provides some site orientation, answers those questions like where's the copy machine, do we have a gum policy, but specific to that building. We also have mentors, and that they specifically look at instruction, and we'll get deeper into that here in a second. And then we also have some other layers of support that are not directly under induction, but do provide that support for those teachers, such as PLCs. So why a comprehensive mentor program? Some might call it intensive mentor program, and Fargo is known for that, for their program. In fact, last spring, the program was recognized as a powerful practice from the Advanced Ed Accreditation External Review Visit because of the intensity, the supports that are put in place that are different from other districts that you would see in the area. So just to give you a brief history lesson, roughly about 20 years ago, we have started this program. It looked a little different. It was more of a traditional one-on-one mentoring where a veteran teacher was matched with a new teacher, and they really focused on the school culture, emotional support. Some did address instruction, but it really depended on the mentor. And also, it also depended if they could find the time to meet. And as this saying goes, if you don't have that time requirement or that sanctioned time, the new teachers are hesitant to ask, and the veteran teachers are reluctant to interfere or offer that assistance. We call that the double barrier. And so then in 2009, the Century Code was written in specifically for the North Dakota Teacher Support System to be created that would select and train experienced teachers who serve as mentors for first-year teachers. And because of this, and they were to focus specifically on instructional skills. And through the North Dakota Teacher Support System, they provide requirements such as sanctioned time. And I'll get into that in a second. But if districts choose to join the North Dakota Teacher Support System, they receive funding. So whether that goes directly to mentors or it can go to the program as well. And I can go into that if you want any more details around that too. So again, the partnership is with North Dakota Teacher Support System, but what else makes us different is we also partner with New Teacher Center, which is a national organization out of California who meets with districts from around the country. And it just happens that the North Dakota Teacher Support System also partners with New Teacher Center. So everything is really well aligned, and we use them together, and I'll show you that here in a second. So for instance, the state, or NDTSS, requires weekly meetings with first-year teachers, roughly about 30 hours of meeting time throughout the year. And in that meeting, we use the NTC tool to reflect on what's working, challenges, and next steps. And we call that the CAL. We have all these acronyms in our program alone. But that's really a mindset or a habit of mind we want to create in new teachers. The state also requires some observations. For instance, the mentor has to go in and observe roughly about 6 times throughout the year and giving feedback. And the New Teacher Center has tools and protocols that help the mentor through training what kind of evidence to collect, how to give that feedback to a peer, and which can be much different than giving feedback to a student. So lots of intense training around that. And then again, the state requires video reflections, and then also for new teachers to go out and watch other veteran teachers teach, which is one of the popular ones, of course. A really great tool that's used from the NTC is the analysis of student work. And in fact, it has gone beyond the mentoring program, and you'll see it in PLCs, you'll see it in task forces, and it's really getting to the heart of what matters. Did the students learn? So yes, they taught it, but then what did they learn from it? And if they didn't learn, how do we differentiate? And it really walks the mentor and the new teacher through this, really creating that habit of mind that we want in all teachers in our district. And again, to line everything up is the professional goal setting and reflection, which is around our Marzano framework, which we adopted 2 years ago. And the teachers really pick out goals that are streamlined with that, and then the mentor helps them collect that evidence so that they have evidence to show they're growing in that area. So in a minute, we're going to watch a video of some mentors and mentees, but before I do that, I'm just going to give you a few numbers from our program. Currently this year, we have 70 teachers in our mentor program, and we mentor specifically first years. This year we have 31, but we also go beyond that. We mentor, like Rachel said, those that come to us with 1 to 3 years experience as well. This year we had 10. In addition, if those that have more than 3 years experience, if they prefer and we have enough capacity, we will mentor them, and there are 6 this year. And we have 23 second-year teachers, meaning we promise to mentor the teachers for their first 2 years in their profession. So those are second years. They were first years last year. And of course, we differentiate our support. So first years have 30 hours of meeting time and some requirements. The ones that come with experience in the second years have about half that. So just to make sure we meet their needs. And really this year alone, we impacted at least 4,000 students and touching the lives of them and these mindsets that we're trying to create. So just to see some trend data, again, those who are mentored, we really mentor roughly around 70, sometimes more, sometimes less. If you added those numbers, they may not match the numbers in your pamphlet. I had a monkey with them, but we wanted to take out the second-year teachers, so they weren't counted twice, but we have mentored 342 teachers in our system. So in a second, you'll hear from some mentors and mentees, and really we're slowly building that foundation of and creating these mindsets and habits of mind through the mentor program. It's certainly the foundation to teacher development. And just a little touch on our mentors. We have what we call a hybrid program. So basically we have classroom teachers who are mentoring. They usually mentor about one. We have our staff developers who are facilitators and student performance strategists who mentor as part of their role. We have a few retired teachers, and then we also have admin interns. Because it's such great training on how to provide feedback to teachers, our admin interns mentor as well. So anywhere from 1 to 6 teachers can be mentored by someone, depending on the role. And again, the training over the course of the years is about 60 hours spread out. We also meet in professional learning communities throughout because it is a skill. We meet regularly. Probably about 3 to 4 times a year the veteran mentors get together. It is kind of, if you notice, a career pathway to leadership. Many of our mentors, we have in fact 12 mentors who have gone through the program and now have become administrators, either within Fargo or have moved on to another district to become an administrator. So it definitely hones in on those leadership skills as well, besides supporting new teachers. And just to give you some, if you look on page 4 and 5 of your pamphlet, there is some data for you to look at. The mentor activity log is something that we use to collect implementation data. This is data that tells us, are we doing the program to fidelity? So our mentors enter this information into the log, and we have reports that we can see, and how many times people are meeting, what they're meeting on, as well as the best that we have for impact data at this time is our induction survey that we give every spring to new teachers, mentors, and principals. So there's some data there for you to look at. And then we will also take a look at the video. Within the video, the hope is that you'll see some traces of our induction goals. So hopefully you'll see somebody speak to our collaborative culture of coaching, how teachers become self-reflective in their habits, how they accelerate their effectiveness and their teacher practice, and again, that habits of mind, and all to increase in student engagement and academic achievement.
Mentor program is really beneficial just in the sense that becoming in as a new teacher, you just feel like you're flooded with so many things and tasks. So it's nice just having someone to go to for help on, both subjects, whether it's just lesson planning or materials and advice, strategies. She's so great in watching her teach, and then I can try to see how it's supposed to be done and then imitate that in my classroom.
So one of your goals that I documented here was the identifying critical content. And so that's with helping students interact with new knowledge. And according to what you put on the eye observation tool, Your overarching goal was to point out accurate critical information. So she is just so good at being self-reflective, and I think the mentor program just guides new teachers and veteran teachers to be much more self-reflective in their practice. It's not always from the stance of teaching, but the questions of how do you know the students understood it? And she's able to kind of gather data from her students and see, did they get that from my teaching? What can I do to make sure they're getting it even better, or all students are understanding this? And so just being so reflective in our practice is one of the huge benefits of the mentor program.
The biggest thing that I see through the mentoring program is the amount of growth that a first or second year teacher is able to make, even a first year employee, because I'll mentor a lot of them as well. It's amazing how they're using what they learned in their pre-service college classes, which is a lot of content focus, is a lot of standards focus, and then through the support of the mentoring program, they use that and expand on it and learn about the professional development with Marzano, the building-driven professional development, management and procedures, and all of those things come into play. And with the support of a mentor, they have that person right there in the building in most cases. We decided we wanted to use this for our post-reflection sheet. So you wanted feedback on the flow of the lesson, because this has been new to us.
We found the mentoring program to be really beneficial. There are very clear and concise expectations for the program, so that helps all of us get off on a really strong foot, and it really helps to create that expectation and that culture that everybody needs a coach, and our mentoring program gradually moves into coaching, and so by the end, our new teachers are comfortable with coaching. They understand that coaching is just what we do here, and they get very used to having people in the room and getting feedback.
So what's great about our mentor program in Fargo Public Schools is our mentors are trained to create a habit of mind for our teachers. And what that looks like is we have a set of tools and protocols that mentors are trained on that helps guide that conversation. And these tools and protocols follow what we have as our teaching cycle. And that teacher gets someone who is in their classroom side by side with them, giving them that rich, explicit feedback.
What I have to say about the New Teacher Center is I've taught for 37 years, I've mentored probably for 25 of those. And when I took the 21 days of mentor training, it was like, I had no idea how to mentor. So they've really taught us the language of how to talk to mentees, how to give them tools to pick from. I mean, you have a conversation about, what do you think you might want to do differently? What are some of the things that we could give you as strategies that you can pick from, so it's your own voice in teaching. It's not us telling you what to do. And as I've looked at mentor programs across the country and how people are administering them, the part they're missing is how to talk to a mentee and really draw from them their own decisions based on choices that you talk through together. So I think that's been the biggest change I learned with the mentor program, and it's the part I see missing across the country.
Slurring, yeah.
We're gonna make note of that, because I think, if we were to write a rubric when we get done, which this is a great tool to do that, that would be something you'd want to put on there, make sure those things aren't affected by shifting.
The mentoring program has been incredibly positive for me as a way to just bounce ideas back and forth, and I think the most important part of it is sort of it's the therapy of it all, I guess, maybe. Just having a struggle, knowing that there's someone in your corner where it's not a judgment thing, it's not you're not doing your job, it's just well, let's help you out in the best way possible. That's the biggest and most important part of this program that I'm taking away from it, I think.
And in the end, not only will our teachers' practice accelerate, but we will see gains in the classroom as well.
Any questions?
Any questions or comments from anyone? Dr. Schatz? Oh, Dr. Dennett, let's see.
I guess thank you for coming tonight, although none of this is news to me because ESPB is mandated to be in charge of this, and so we were all a little concerned with the legislative session, what would happen with the funding. And I know it's less than we would have liked, but this program hasn't gone away from the state level, and I think that's really important from a political piece, from a district piece, and so on. And Joelle and her team of mentors do an amazing job, because I've seen all of these women in action doing exactly what they were doing. And I've talked to a lot of the mentees afterwards and heard their comments, and everything Joelle said is correct, that those teachers really get a lot out of it and appreciate it. And so I think it's great that the rest of the board has had, if they haven't had the hands-on opportunity to see it in the schools, to hear what we're doing. And thank you very much.
You.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Dr. Schatz?
Well, if you could, Joel, just give a brief overview of where we landed with the legislative session, because we were communicating during that. And as the pass-through grants, as you know, a lot of those were under attack, and this kind of falls in that category. This was the one that we were championing with legislators, and making sure that they understood that, you know, if there's a pass-through grant that you don't want to change, it's this one here, and go after other ones that probably aren't as effective. And so just, because we talked about it, the impact possibly on what you're doing and
For
just
Fargo?
where you're at, yeah.
They had probably a 10%, is that correct? 10% decrease in their budget. And so the easiest way that they have found that will have the less likely impact of a district, but will still feel it a little bit, is sub-reimbursement. So when teachers go, the first year teachers attend their meetings during school, there's 3 days where they have a sub. And also when they go and observe other veteran teachers, they provide money for the subs, up to $500 per teacher. So that will no longer, so that will be something that in the end we'll have to pick up if possible.
And so as we build a budget, you know, these are the types of things that we have to look at. And so we'll be looking at that, and we'll be looking at our sub-budgets, and I'm sure Rachel and Bob have talked about how we can maintain what we're doing. So so minimal impact to the program. Bottom line is we're still hold our program together, the 3 years, the, you know, first year, the whole thing. So after a pretty rough legislative session, we're pretty lucky to still have the funding that's coming forward with this. And my kudos to you for just the job that you do and the work that you do. So thank you very much for everything that you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, we hear all the time that the single most important indicator of student progress is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. So thank you for helping make our district better. One more? Yeah.
And while I still have them here, I didn't get to speak on the first presentation, but a few years ago when I sat down with Patty and talked about her becoming our special ed director, we were having those conversations and about, and I think Patty was looking at me a little scared at the time. But I tell you, we really have landed with a great special ed director, and Patty's doing a terrific job. And on top of that, Carrie was bold enough to take on the ECSE during a very tough time when we moved the program, and really has put together the model now that I think moving forward is going to really serve us well. And Carrie's going to Kennedy and now to be the principal there. And I think many of the skills that she learned and things that she's been doing have come from the experience at ECSE to prepare her to take on Kennedy. And so kudos to you and the good work that you've done, and that program has landed and it's really doing well. So all of you, just great job.
Thank you again so much. So the fun part of our meeting being now behind us. Brock, budget assumptions.
Oh, let the fun begin. I don't know what you're talking about. Madam President, members of the board, I gave you a handout, a single page, which has some projected revenues and expenditures. We did take this to the planning committee last week, talk through the particulars of what we see for projections now that the legislature is over and we've received information regarding valuation changes. I'll briefly just walk through the highlights and what things are based on. The property tax revenue is based on a projection from the assessor's office of a 6.4% increase for Fargo Public Schools, District 1. The city will be slightly larger than that, but of course our footprint falls within the city and will be slightly smaller. The percent change over on the right-hand side, this really includes all areas of property tax, including prior year, et cetera. So it reflects slightly higher and is also comparing last year's budget to the new year's budget. And when this is all said and done, we will compare last year's actual to the new year's budget, and so those numbers will change. But that was based on a 6.4% increase. Tuition is held flat. It's a hard thing to really project. We look at some averaging, but we lose some students, we gain some students, and it's really just difficult because it's an ever-changing number. Local revenue is relatively unchanged, interest income. Then the state piece, which we've talked about, we knew that we would collect less state money this year than we collect, or excuse me, next year than we collect currently. And the net impact of that is about $1.1 million less in state funding. That really is comprised of two main components. One is the flat foundation aid payment, and so the $96.46 per pupil, $9,646 per pupil, remains unchanged. But as property tax valuations go up and the 60 mil deduct goes up, as I wrote, you probably saw in the Journey article last week, your deduction increases, which means your foundation aid decreases because you get less that comes from there. Also, we have the transportation reduction that came through the funding formula. So the net impact of the foundation aid is $1.1 million. The legislature, we know, did great work for K-12 education. They continued to hold us to a standard and a priority that showed how important K-12 education is. But make no mistake that having flat funding and being held harmless are two completely different things. And we did in fact have flat funding in K-12 education from a per pupil payment perspective. It's a lot of P's. But we are not held harmless, obviously, as you can see, and that's the effect of that. So in a nutshell, at the end of the day, that comes down to an estimate of just over $1.3 million in new revenue for next year, or just under a 1% increase in revenue. And the good news is that's an increase, however small it might be, and so we're not in the position of downsizing the district per se from a result of significant lost revenue either from local sources or state sources, but it certainly is a slowing down of that increase, as we've seen in my time with you, revenue increases throughout the year between probably 2.8 and upwards to 5.5%, 6% maybe at times, and we are just under 1%. So that's where we see the new revenue coming in at. On the expenditure side, modest changes to date. We are currently working through the district and with all departments on collecting budget requests for next year. A couple that I'll just point out quickly. On the salary expense line, you see there's a decrease there of $200,000. We simply have held salaries at this point flat, waiting for the resolution of negotiations. That $200,000 is a reflection of a decrease in the both the annuity payments or the PLS payouts, where people can buy, can sell back portions of their sick leave. And as we average that out, we see that that is going down, and so we project there would be a decrease in that. Who knows, but that's at least from a trending pattern where we see that. Otherwise, everything else has been held flat in that area. We have netted out a projected increase in overall benefit costs of just under 3%. For the time being, we've built in a 5% increase on health insurance. I would tell you that I believe that will likely be more than 5%, but we will see as we work with our benefits consultant how that goes. But for getting a placeholder in there and knowing what we would have, we built it in at 5%. And the other areas are just areas that we've either seen a decrease in items that we know will be happening, either from changes in sale of property, things we've done differently with fund transfers. Those are the ones that either have the amortization schedule for bond repayment, or within fund transfers is also how we fund activities and Trollwood, and so that all falls in the internal piece, and we've seen some changes in those schedules. But the bottom half of this sheet is subject to change over the next 6 to 8 weeks as we get ready for a preliminary budget, because we're working with departments, we're working within teaching and learning and business services to work with our directors and departments and buildings to find areas that we can do things differently and be more efficient. And the reason for that, of course, is we are in, as you know, the middle of negotiations, and that has been salary and benefits about 78% of our budget. And so as we think about that 1.3 million, how will that be distributed as we go forward? So those are that's the current information that we're looking at as we build our budget. We will be do everything in our power to bring you a preliminary budget, probably in the second meeting in June. We'll be working with planning between now and then to work through that as the board makes decisions with FEA and any other requests that come in from the departments. With that, I'll take any questions that you might have, or Jim, I know we covered this in planning, may have additional thoughts or information as well.
Thank you, Brock. Anybody have any questions or comments to add? Okay, well, thank you for all the work that you've done and your team and all the departments and Dr. Schatz and everybody in planning. To be continued, I guess. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda with the additional HR addendums.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor of approving the items on the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Thank you. That gets us to the Operations Center budget. Jim, are you doing this one?
Yep, I sure am.
Thank you.
Planning met and administration brought forward a couple of thoughts on our new ops center. We are currently still tracking, actually a little bit under what we had approved for a budget number on the facility, but of course it's not done yet either. But if everything holds true, we actually think we'll have probably a little savings on the contingency side. But in looking at the facility and the current staff looking at the facility, from the time this project began to where we sit today, we had a couple of people in the building and trades area in particular that retired and new leadership brought in their end. And they had some minor tweaks that they said, boy, it would really be nice if this could be addressed right now. And those were all looked at, I believe, by Brock and Jim Free, and well, at least the ones they'd like to move forward with, they all thought, yeah, those made sense. And that required a budget adjustment of approximately about $35,000 to $40,000. Then there was a different issue that was never part of the original project, but after numerous discussions at the staff level, they brought it to planning. Planning is bringing it to the board with a planning's recommendation added to it to actually purchase and construct a storage facility for our outdoor materials, wood chips, sand, gravel. These things we've stored in the past basically in kind of concrete boxes outside, and of course in the wintertime they're out there trying to chip it apart to load up some sand, get it into the sanders. So they looked at what could be done for what they call it temporary outdoor storage facilities, but they're really not a temporary building. They're just not, a normal roof design, more like you see kind of over at golf courses and other maintenance shops. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong there, Brock, but I think the estimated cost for that structure is between 90 and 105,000, depending upon what size and what the final bids would come in at. So administration came to planning and said, we'd like to have authorization to spend about $140,000 of the building fund balance. So we're not talking about the general fund, we're not talking about taking on more debt. We have the capacity in the fund balance of the building fund to do the additional fit up that wasn't planned in the original design and to create the outdoor storage building. I hate to use the word building because it looks more like a giant tent on a foundation to me, but that's what these things are. Based upon the fact that the building fund had the capacity, planning was comfortable bringing this forward as a recommendation to the board to consider. Keep in mind this action that I'll put forward as soon as I get done with this diatribe is to authorize the expenditure of up to $140,000. We think the net number will end up being less because of the savings on the main project. But until everything's done, we're not going to know what that bottom line savings is. Brock suggested at one time, should I be bringing a net number here? And I said, nope, because then you've painted yourself into a corner on the contingency side of our main project. I said, let's seek the authorization for the 140. When everything's said and done, whatever savings we have on the main project can stay right inside the building fund where these dollars would come out of anyway. So with that, I'll put forward a motion and then throw it open for questions that we approve the additional allocation of resources of $142,000 from the building fund for the completion of the Operations Center project.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, John?
When did this project begin? Was this February 2016 that this happened? Is before I came onto the board, correct?
Yeah, members of the board, John, the approval of the bids was done on February 9th of 2016. The conversations in regards to this happened, I'm going to look at Dr. Schatz, about a year prior to that, right after we finished our building, our long-range facility plan. The city came and said, oh, hey, we've got an idea here. So really this has been in conversations 2+ years, and approval happened in February of 16.
What was the original budget?
Yeah, members of the board, John, so the original award of bids themselves, a lot of people talk about the cost of construction, which is really the bids and the construction manager, was $8.2 million. And then I always want to look, and we always bring to you as a board what I call the all-in cost, which includes all the architect fees, FF&E, et cetera. So the original approval by the board was for $9.2 million, actually $9,239,138.30. So $9.2 million. That was the original approval.
Have there been any other adjustments necessary after that?
There have not been.
Okay.
Dinah.
Brock, do you want to remind, especially for the folks who are new to the board, that 9 point whatever isn't coming out of how that came about?
Sure. Members of the board, Dinah, this is really a discussion that started with the City of Fargo, the Cass County Joint Water Resource District, and the Diversion Authority, as they needed to secure a portion of our existing warehouse to finish the Second Street project. And so there was a purchase agreement for that facility worked out between the Diversion Authority and the Cass County Joint Water Resource Board. So of that $9.2 million, we received approximately $1.8 million in purchase and relocation costs. They have to, if they're going to buy your facility, they also, through a federal program, have to pay to relocate you to a similar facility that will meet the needs you currently are abandoning. So About 8.1 million of that number came through those transactions. So the board's or the district's responsibility for this really is about 1.1 million, which is coming from the building fund, not from the general fund, and was really a result of us as a district saying, while that's happening, does it make sense for us to consolidate all functions under one roof, which really includes the grounds department and the print shop, which we were leasing space on 25th and 5th, what's commonly referred to as the former Kreider building. That lease payment was costing us about $115,000 a year. We were at the end of that, actually in December. We did a 6-month extension to get through this period of time until we could get moved, and we will be then completely moving that out of that, not have a lease payment, and consolidate all those functions. So that's really the impact, why we had costs into the building as well, because we made a financial decision and a structural decision to move all things under one roof and to own rather than lease. And again, out of the building fund and not the general fund or dollars that are used for day-to-day operations.
Thank you, Brock. John, is that okay? Any other questions? Okay, Anne Marie, if you would call the roll, please.
Ulrich? Yes. Ani?
Yes.
Goldenberg?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
Rodenbiker?
Yes.
Boyd?
Yes, motion carries, and thank you for all your work on this. Career Workforce Academy, Dr. Schatz.
Thank you. Tonight you were provided a document called Career Workforce Academy, and I'm sharing that with you and giving you an update on the work that's been done with this. Over the last couple of years, there's been conversations with the folks at the North Dakota State College of Science and other collaboratives in our metro area about the possibility of looking at something that would be called a Career Workforce Academy. And that work continues in our partnership with all of these different groups. And we're at a point where I would like to have the board give approval to administration to continue that work and to actually write from myself to the organizations involved a letter of support so that we can continue to move forward, ensuring that all folks involved in this project are wanting to move forward. At this time, there's no dollars that are allocated to anything here, and we're continually developing the concept. As you can see through the document, what this would do is it would create career pathway options for students in K-12 and post K-12 education. And this would be very similar to what we've seen in Sioux Falls. This would be similar to what's in Bismarck with the career centers that they have there. We're looking at the K-12 involvement being the advanced level types of experiences for students in the CTE areas. The document kind of lays out some of the pathways and the models that we're looking at, but also on the backside, some work has begun with Denise working with the college representatives, Denise Jonas, our CTE director, and the schools involved with what would it look like from a curricular standpoint. And so President Richmond from Wahpeton, Tony Grinberg, who is the project coordinator now, who's been hired by Wahpeton, are moving forward with the higher ed board at their level to ask for permission to actually go out and start looking at private types of private donations to help with something like this. In order to get that going, they need to have like I said, this letter of support. And so I'm recommending that you allow me to do that. I'll let somebody else read the recommendation if they want, if they so choose to make a motion. And that's where we're at today with this.
Thank you, Dr. Schatz. Jim?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we direct our administration to craft a letter of support for the ongoing development of the Career Workforce Cass Clay Workforce Academy.
Motion and a second to direct administration to submit a letter of support for this concept. Any other questions or comments? Anne Marie, please call the roll.
Ani?
Yes.
Goldenberg?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
Rodenbacher,
Yes.
Ulrich.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. That's exciting to see this get to this point. Yes, Brandy?
Good job on that too, Dr. Schatz. I'm very much in favor of this.
Very exciting. Thank you. We'll have one more thing before we take our break, and after the break, we will have the motion to go into executive session and then take our break, if that makes any sense. But, so we don't come back and go back. So you have the board outside liaison assignment review in front of you. Thank you so much for providing us with this feedback. It's very helpful. And if, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I saw any suggestions for any additional liaison assignments. So I think the feedback, and I think administration will follow up with you with some of the questions that you reported. So does anybody have anything to add other than what they've already included in their written report? Great. Well, thanks again for doing that. We will, I would, we're going to have to come back and make the motion to go into executive session. So we'll take our break now, and then we'll come back in, make a short one. Can we come back at 6:40? full board, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move that we move into executive session.
I'm going to make a motion a little different than that. We need to go into executive session for the purpose of negotiation strategies as permitted under North Dakota Century Code 44-04-19.1.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to go into executive session. Anne Marie, please call the roll.
Goldenberg.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
Rodenbiker.
Yes.
Ulrich.
Yes.
Ani.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes. We will adjourn to executive session. reconvened in our regular session, and we are now to board reports. Again, thank you everyone who we all made our school liaison visits, and thank you for writing up your observations. That's extremely helpful. Does anyone have anything to comment on that either highlighting what they wrote about or something that wasn't included in their report? Dinah?
I just have a comment. I found it really interesting. Reading these reiterated for me how important it is that we all visit schools and get a different impression of what's going on behind the scenes, because those of you who've been on the board, well, Jim has heard it ad nauseum, that this is something that I've really pushed for all the years that I've been on the board, because I think you can't make good decisions if you don't see what's going on in the schools. So thank you, everybody, for continuing and doing it and making it your own and learning something. So,
thank you. Anyone else? Brandy?
One got missed, so I didn't blow it off. It was not in the report. Lewis and
it's my
Clark.
fault. Yep.
Thank you for clarifying that. We don't often hear a "my bad" from Anne Marie, so I guess it's a little reassuring that she's not perfect. All right, so thank you very much. Anyone else have anything to add? Terrific. Thank you for the great reading. I really enjoyed reading those so much. Okay, we are down to committee liaison and correspondent reports. So, Brandy, you get first crack at it.
Okay, I did PTA meetings last night at Lewis and Clark and South High. It was the last one of the year, and they just had good conversation and some suggestions, and I always enjoy going to those just to hear and see how many people are there. But Lewis and Clark, they're both doing very well. So that's all I have.
Nice, thank you. Christy?
I was we had a communications meeting this week, and I also was at Eggs and Issues, and I put a postcard on each of your spots. We are doing a Solve Addiction North Dakota on May 18th, and so we are looking for business leaders and community leaders to be there. First Lady Catherine Burgum will be speaking, and so it's talking about how we solve addiction statewide, not just here. So brought to you by my organization out of Sioux Falls, but really it's a North Dakota initiative. And if anybody has a room for a poster at their place of employment, I have some.
Great, thank you very much. David?
Well, I'm just very humbled by my efforts at Eagle Center this year that allowed Tanya Lingle to become Administrator of the Year. So I'm sure it was my liaison visit that pushed her over the top. But
Nicely done. Dinah?
So I got to be at the announcement for the staff person of the year. That's Idette Graham, who works in this building, and at Tanya's this morning. And Tanya had apparently the largest family grouping ever at that. It was really lots of fun. I was at the PTA luncheon, Eggs and Issues as well. I noticed that Jim, one of the things that Jim wrote about in his liaison visits was the Blue Stem Ball that Discovery did at Blue Stem. I was also there. I guess we didn't overlap. It was a great event, and it was really nice to see how different schools or different groups within our school are using the Blue Stem facility. And I talked to a lot of parents who I would have expected had been out there before and had not, so that was surprising. But I talked to the music and art teachers who were just head over heels excited with the way that went, so I think that was a really nice idea. And also I had the privilege of sitting next to one of the YWCA Women of the Year the other night, which was a really nice evening, and all 4 of the women from Fargo Public Schools who were nominated in different categories all won in their categories, including Beth Eckery, who has been one of our Teachers of the Year for this district and the state, and my boys were fortunate enough to both have her, as well as the student and one of the behavioral specialists who's at Jefferson. So I think we were really well represented at that too. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Dinah. Jim?
Well, first off, I don't know if you noticed it. I'm not sure what time you got there, Dinah, but I just want to alert the rest of the state that might be listening to our broadcast that be concerned about Davies boys basketball team going forward. because 3 of the young Discovery jazz musicians I looked up to. And I kept thinking, these kids are in middle school? And I said, where's the basketball coach? Maybe they'll just follow music, though. You never know. SEEC had a board meeting earlier today. We took a look at our preliminary budget for the Southeast Education Cooperative, much like every school district is looking at throughout the entire state. Most of the REAs are seeing their budgets also shrink compared to the previous year, more so because of grants that are running out. The big Succeed 2020 grant that came out of the oil patch to try and really address some issues is coming to an end. But there are also some other pretty significant grants that thus far have not been renewed out of Washington, D.C., and who knows if they will be. Time will tell. And some are getting renewed but at a lower rate. So it looks like our operating budget for the SEEC will be down a little bit over what it was this year. Not significant, though. Hopefully we'll have the ability to continue all programming. We also received the evaluation for our exec director, who looks like he's going to be on board for another year based upon a positive evaluation. And we had a legislative update regarding the issues surrounding REAs in the legislature, which parallels some of what we as a district have been looking at, but they have some other issues. They've got actual grant program to try and incentivize REAs and other education subunits to consider consolidation if it makes sense from their perspective, especially with tightening budgets throughout all areas. North Dakota School Boards Association has a board meeting tomorrow morning. We are going to be really sifting through the applicants for the exec director position, deciding who we're going to bring in for interviews. Those I think are going to be scheduled for May 20th. So I think I'll have 3 North Dakota State School Board Association board meetings this month alone. Probably a few conference calls too. Planning did meet. You've seen a lot of what we covered. We talked about the changes potentially at the Ops Center, which I want to thank the board for supporting those tonight. We talked about the Career Center and its reality to come forward. And again, I want to thank the board for supporting Dr. Schatz in that endeavor. And we took a look at the budget assumptions that Brock shared with you in his report earlier today. We will be meeting, of course, in June. I'm not certain. We may have to move our regular scheduled date. That is to be determined. I've got a couple of things going on in Bismarck. I got to figure out for sure when that's going to take place. So once Brock and I get calendar coordinated, we'll put it out to everybody. If it's not on our regular scheduled day, it'll be close to it, that's for sure. And my guess would be, just from past experience, for those of you on planning, it'll probably be the first of 2 planning committee meetings in June, because we are going to be working diligently to support Brock and his budget team to actually get our preliminary budget to the board for approval at that second meeting in June. Just so you're all aware, that's not a hard and fast deadline. That has historically been our goal as a planning committee, and I think Brock as a budget priority planning person, especially in years when we have a turnover on the board and new people are seated at the July meeting. Best to have the people that have been working at this board table really taking a look at that preliminary budget for approval. Once we do the approval of the preliminary, it continues to get worked on over the course of the summer and really into the early fall. And we will again vote on it, usually no earlier than late August, more typically in September, which will be when we actually finalize the final approval of the budget. So it's kind of a 2-step dance process we're going to be going through on that. And I think that's it. Oh, there's, I don't know how many shopping days left until the picnic, which you might want to take your highlight August 2nd, the deuce of August, Icelandic Independence Day, I might add. It'll be a sunshiny day for those of you that want to plan any outdoor activity. And you'll notice it says there, please solicit door prizes early and often. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Rebecca?
All right. Communications Committee, I'll just give a little report since Jennifer's not here. We met yesterday. We discussed that we have, we've been through the communications audit quite a few times and tried to address most of the action items in there, and we basically decided that we feel like we've exhausted that at this point. So it doesn't mean that items can't be brought back for discussion, but I think that's being put to bed right now. And we'll probably talk about when there's time to do, or when it's appropriate to do another communications audit. That'll probably be the most important point from that. And when we have our summer retreat, we'll be discussing, or we'll do some brainstorming at that retreat regarding items that we'd like to have discussed at our public information or our public engagement meeting in November. Let's see, we will not be meeting in May. It was our last meeting yesterday. And if you haven't had a chance to look at there are a couple of items at the on the table back here, a couple of jacket items that we're looking at having. If you'd like to take a look and give some feedback, I think to Anne Marie, that would be great if you're interested. And I believe that's it for the Communications Committee. Does anyone remember anything that I did not cover?
I'd like to just add one thing. You had brought up the State of the District Community Forum that happened in November, and the mill levy effort kind of threw this off schedule a little bit, but what we had talked about in the committee and Anne Marie had pulled together was, once we had boiled down all the suggestions and came up with a summary, she presented the final version of that summary at our meeting yesterday, and that will be sent out as kind of a final thank you to all the people who participated, so that they know that their input really did have some actionable consequence. And so what Rebecca was referring to is this will now become kind of an operational cycle. So in the summer, issues will emerge that we decided that we would like public input on. Those will be the questions, specific questions asked at the public State of the District event in November. It'll be boiled down and discussed and condensed and so forth like we did this year, and a final summary piece, informational piece, will go out to the participants. So that'll just become part of our cycle. So that was really kind of chewed on by the Communications Committee, and that's nice to see that have some kind of clarity and a kind of systemic lasting piece to it. So thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. That was the first thing I wrote down, but I forgot to mention it. I worked backwards. Okay, GAC. So it looks like we're going to have a meeting May 16th, 7:30 a.m. Is that correct? Regarding legislative wrap-up. And Brock, do you have anything you want to add right now? No? Okay. Let's see. The Native American Commission met last Thursday. We spent a lot of time talking about this powwow, the Crossroads Powwow, that will be in Fargo at the Shields Arena, June 2nd through the 4th. And if you'd like to get some more information on that, you can. I know that it's on Facebook. Let's see here. It's the second annual powwow. And the Fargo Public Library is going to be hosting a week-long Native American celebration early November, so I'm involved in some of just kind of serving as a liaison with that planning to the Native American Commission. And I'm going to pass this around. Last week also I attended the 10th anniversary celebration for PAY. I talked about that a little bit at one of our last meetings, and that stands for Philanthropy and Youth. It's a program of the Berry Foundation, and I'm just going to read this here. PAY is designed to introduce local high school students to the importance of leadership and service through grant making. And there's a program in Winnipeg. It's called the Winnipeg Foundation, and it is modeled after that Winnipeg Foundation. And so I served on a board at at Berry Hall at NDSU, where some of the students presented their philanthropy research and recommendations for grants. Each school was given each group at a school was given $5,000 to make decisions and research based on mission and values, where they would like to place or how they would like to divide up that $5,000 for different nonprofits in the area. And so there were, I believe there were 21 schools that participated, and so there were more presentations held at NDSU Berry Hall than the one I was at. So many community members were involved in helping to listen to those presentations and give feedback and ask questions. So the event that was held at NDSU last week was in their new basketball complex, and I'd never been there before. And it was a very fun, engaging performance and opportunity for students. One student from each school shared a bit about their project and their recommendations. And that's a book that highlights the schools that participated. And all 4 of our high schools, North, South, Davies, and the kids at Woodrow Wilson participated. So I just want to thank them for all of their work. It's a commitment in addition to school, in addition to any of the other curricular or co-curricular activities that they participate in. And also thank the advisors and teachers that were involved in helping to provide the opportunity for the students, because if they would not be doing so, the students would not have that opportunity. So that's additional time on their behalf as well. And nice booklet to capture the information and everything that the students have been able to participate in. So thank you. That's it.
Great, thank you very much. John?
I completed my school visits. Actually, I think I did that before the last board meeting. Anyway, it's all reported in there, and probably just to echo Dinah's comments, it's just wonderful to get out to the schools, and so important to get out there and see the kids and the staff and the teachers. This past Wednesday on the 3rd in the evening, I had the honor of introducing 3 of the students who wrote their stories and that were published in the Green Card Youth Voices book at a reading at the library. That was a really great event. And they read their stories out of the book. It was about 24, maybe 30 people in the room, and there was a question and answer period afterward. And that was really interesting. It turned out that a large part of the audience were other refugees and immigrants to the area. And so they were comparing and contrasting experiences of where they had come from and their experiences here in Fargo. Some of the students are seniors now, and they had plans for college. One of them's moving away and is very sad about that. Fargo's really home to these kids now. And so that was really excellent. I was really proud and honored to be asked to do that, and it was a good event. And if you haven't read that book, find a copy and check it out. It's really amazing. I'm really proud that happened in our district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was nice seeing you involved in that. That was great. I did my school visits since the last meeting, and I have the report here. And I think, are you getting anxious about the Blue STEM RSVPs yet, the Trollwood musical, or do we still have time?
There are a few people that I haven't heard from, so if you have any ticket needs, please let me know. We have a little bit of time yet, but still, we've only reserved a certain threshold, so if we'd reach or exceed that, I would need to know so we make sure we have enough tickets, but I think we will be okay. But just in case you decide to bring additional family members, the sooner the better would be great for that.
Sure, or if you are not planning to go, to let you know that as well.
That'd be great as well.
So you know. Okay. I have nothing else. Our next meeting is May 23rd. We're adjourned. Thank you.